Okay, we are on the lunch break in the questioning of Lindsey, one of the women who was deceived into a long-term intimate relationship by the undercover officer Carlo Soracchi, who, using the cover name Carlo Neri, infiltrated a number of anti-racist, socialist, and anti-fascist groups in the early 2000s. We've been hearing more from Lindsey this morning about the nature of the relationship, trips they went on, how we portrayed their life. I'm joined by Dot, who is the director of We Do Not Consent, a film which Lindsey featured in, talking about the relationship. What have you made of the evidence so far today?
She's just so brilliant, and I know her story quite well because we worked on this short film together, have remained in touch, and hearing the details and just sitting, just now they were talking about the all expenses sponsored trip to Venice, which he just decided to take, basically to just have a romantic weekend with her, and just kind of sitting with it and the details and it really being brought to life. It's those moments when you hear those details, and her talking about she took this photo of him, and in that photo you can really see all the love that she felt towards him. It really, really brought to life this story, which I'm familiar with. And she's just so full of humor and emotion, and she really manages to kind of humanize her own story and what happened to her, and she's just bloody funny.
Yeah, she is incredibly funny and so very human. I mean, like you say, she really brings to life. And seeing those photographs, I mean, they're so tender. Those photos of him. She talks about how beautiful that trip was, how touched she was by this gesture of him booking this trip, taking her away just for Christmas 2001 to Venice. How for many years this trip really meant a lot to her, even after the relationship had soured and so forth. And really, and now how disgusted she is by what the reality of what was going on at the time was.
And she's not shying away from saying they had a lot of sex on the trip, which is, it's uncomfortable to talk about sex at the best of times, let alone in this institutional environment. But I really appreciate how she is saying, that like we went there, we had a lot of sex, and I think it's quite important to remember the physicality of the abuse as well, which it's a reminder of. I just find it fascinating that, I mean, he's one of the spy cops where his level of arrogance and sense of just complete impunity, all of his actions were coming from a place of, I will get away with this. Like there was no consideration. The fact that he gave her a camera that she used to take photos of him while they were on a romantic holiday paid for by us to Venice.
Yeah.
He's not even trying to cover his back like some of the other officers accept them. And of course, this all comes to the fore, and he tries to hide his anonymity based on the grounds that the activists are violence. It's like, no, based on Lindsey's testimony, they showed you nothing but love and care. And it's so, I think one of the things that the moment you meet Lindsey, you just get it straight away, and you hear this throughout her evidence. She is so caring, and that is such a beautiful thing, and it makes it so painful that is what is exploited. And there she is feeling guilty, or he's being a bit frosty on this holiday. She is getting to her head. She just takes 15-minute break away, and then she overhears him on the phone saying she's pissed off with me, and she feels really bad because she's worried about him. Little does she know he's on the phone to one of the handlers who's in another city in Italy. It's like the level of care that she has, that she's even worried how taking a 15-minute break will affect him. And to say that he's not reciprocating any of that care is an understatement.
Yeah, I mean, I think she really talked really strongly, really powerfully about this weaponization of empathy, which she says, she came across the concept from a BBC podcast with Neil Woods, the undercover officer who infiltrated criminal gangs, talking about the way that you manipulate people by emotionally connecting with them and getting them to feel empathy for you. And like you say, I mean, she is such a caring person. Those of us who've been following the inquiry closely, and she's been a key part of Police Spies Out of Lives, and is really, takes on a very caring role for a lot of the people who've been affected by undercover deployments. And for somebody to hone in on that and use it as a way of manipulating someone is unforgivable. It's so horrific.
Can you imagine how perverse and sick you have to be to meet somebody like Lindsey, who radiates warmth and love and openness and care, and go, I found just the person whose life I'm going to infiltrate, whose family I'm going to meet, who I'm going to lure in with many things. I also appreciate that she's she says he was really charming. You know, he was really funny. Clearly, lots of people really liked him, and I do think that. I think that's useful as well, and it helps us understand that their currency that they used was just like love and you know, seeming empathy or yeah.
No, I think that's a huge part of it. I mean, I think we mustn't lose sight of it. I mean, this is why they were able to do what they did, was because they charmed people. And I mean, it sounds incredibly charming. I mean, she talked about how generous he was, how he lavished her with gifts, really thoughtful gifts, not just that they were expensive, which they were, but also that, you know, they were really thoughtful things that she would really appreciate, things that she really, you know, she was talking about heartfelt. So much of it was about the way that he emotionally opened up to her. She felt that like he could be vulnerable with her, and you know how powerful that was at the time. You know?
And that it was all performative. It's like while he was thinking carefully about, you know, getting her the hand drum, getting her the cameras or whatever, was he doing anything for his actual wife, his actual children? It's like, does that level of like altruism or just listening to people and care, can that only exist for him and for Spy Cops in a performative realm, you know, where they're getting something from it?
Yeah, I mean, it is. Like she talked about that, the typification of misogyny, the fact that he was, you know, whilst he was deceiving 3 different women into sexual relationships whilst he was deployed undercover, that he had a wife and child who he was not just neglecting but also using. I mean, like he was showing photos of his real son, claiming that he was estranged from him, that the mother of this child was a woman who had, you know, this crazy ex of his who had, it was all her fault, that the fact that he wasn't able to see his son. He used the real name of his sister, real identities of his parents, sharing all sorts of personal private information with her, which he didn't seem, I mean, his trade graph was terrible in that sense.
Yeah. And again, I think that comes back to, he just didn't think the two worlds would ever collide. He just thought he was completely protected. But I have heard enough stories of men basically bitching about their ex-girlfriends, ex-wives, and when everything is their fault, to know that that's such a red flag. But you don't just know that. But it's so interesting how, like, he was, you know, he presented himself as always being in the right. And it's taken me 33 years to learn that that is one of the biggest red flags, when men just place all the blame on their ex-partners.
Yeah, never believe it. In whatever part of life you're in, you know, it's not just undercover cops who do that, but like when men talk about, oh, that's crazy ex, I mean, it's just like, it's the worst thing. I mean, just honestly, it's,
you know, women know that they're going to become good mates with that ex when they end up breaking up with the guy and they realize that she was not the psychopath, that he was like controlling everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a common story, you know, but incredibly effective, because when you're faced with the reality of a person in front of you who's being emotionally vulnerable and opening up about their lives and talking about things, I mean, like Lindsey said, you know, she felt a degree of empathy for his ex, what she thought was his ex, the mother of this child, but she wouldn't have expressed it to him in the moment because it didn't feel appropriate, you know. But like that, you know, she was taken, I'm like, it's totally understandable she was taken in by him, you know, because of the way that he was basically love bombing her.
Yeah, completely. And she, in being so caring towards everything, she has done nothing wrong. Like, to have that bigger heart is such a precious, beautiful thing, and is why she engaged in the first place. She was saying she wasn't even directly herself affected by the poverty, but it was seeing that in her community and around her that made her want to take action. She's also not even affiliated really to that many like organizations or that many political groups. It's like working with the unions, it's anti-fascist work, it's anti-racist work, it's work around, you know, like, and you know, tackling poverty. So she's again one of those women where it's like, it was nothing about the politics, but like in this case it really feels like it was just about the sex. And it was like he was in some kind of game show where it was like, change his identity, you can have whatever you want, everyone will believe you're who you are, and you have an infinite credit card to spend. What do you do? And then you just sit, and then he just goes in and he's like, right, I'll have this girlfriend who's the biggest babe in Liverpool, I'm going to go to Venice, I'm going to have so much fun, with zero consideration for the like unreality of it, or the consequence on Lindsey when eventually he also disappears.
Yeah, And it's not just the lies he's telling to Lindsey and the other women, but also, I mean, it appears from what we've seen from the authorization, he's lying to his bosses as well, claiming that he's going over to Italy as part of a delegation of Committee for Workers International with other socialist comrades to meet up with Italian anarchists, which makes no sense, in 3 different cities. He's got this whole sort of complex itinerary that supposedly they're engaged in. Obviously, he's got a handler with him who knows the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, you wonder, Roger Pierce, who signed off that authorization, who we heard from in the previous phase of the hearings, you know, was an undercover officer himself before becoming a commander eventually. That, you know, they must have known this is all bullshit.
I know, and I wondered, did this come from one of Carlo's bosses going, mate, just have a holiday, treat yourself, and him going, cool, can I bring Lindsey? Or was he like, I'd love to, you know, did he fabricate it? Did the desire come from him? And then for bringing his handler along, was he just like, oh, you should come along too, treat yourself? But I wonder, like, the idea for Venice, I wonder where it even came from, because clearly his senior management were complete, you know, they knew about everything. And who fabricated that whole intricate lie in the cover story for why he was going to Venice, meeting the anarchists? Did he suggest it? I was imagining a manager kind of going like, oh, we'll jot this. What was going on in Italy at the time? Right, let's jot this and that down. But just like dishing out holidays. Also, it was Christmas.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a Christmas bonus.
Yeah. I mean, you really get that impression. I mean, we heard from Mark Jenner, who gave evidence just before Christmas, of how one of his trips seemed almost to be engineered by Bob Lambert, who wanted to go and be the cover officer that in a nearby city, and was just like, oh yeah, if you go there, then I'll be able to go as well. And he said he didn't do anything. He was just in some hotel in the mountains having a lovely time, you know. And it seems like so much of what they did was about engineering holidays for themselves.
Yeah, I think so. Engineering girlfriends, engineering holidays. Yeah, it's almost like bucket lists. And if you shut off other people's humanity, which most of us fortunately can't do that easily, and you go, everyone is a pawn, these are not real people, you know, how do you want to spend a great weekend, or how do you want to spend the next few years of your life? No one will know. What you do, they're living this kind of life of luxury. They're doing things that maybe like we would all like to do, have a nice relationship, have a nice holiday, but there's just no understanding of anyone else's consent or what it means to rope in normal civilians who don't know you're a police officer into that. Yeah,
it's a complete dehumanization of the people that they're targeting, isn't it? Because, you know, at the time, he's not just, I mean, like Lindsey says that, you know, she'd been quite happy for like a bit of a hookup, a bit of fun, you know, a casual relationship, but he's there telling her he loves her, telling her that you know, he's never met a woman like her, becoming very intense, lavishing her with gifts, you know, making these big gestures, to like really kind of like to suck her into this thing, which he then just ditches her on, you know, when it's no longer convenient for him.
Yeah, and I think he must to behave like that. He probably is a danger to all women, and even women who know that he's a cop. It's like that kind of behavior is all just about controlling how other people react to you. There's giving no space. And like knowing Lindsey, but also even in terms of what she's saying, she is someone who has her barriers up. Like I think this, when other people hear about this story, they go like, there's this assumption you have to be naive not to know or to like get roped into that. But like she really is somebody who is very discerning and has her boundaries up and everything. Even if you're not, you don't bloody deserve this. But like I can imagine how much one would have to work to get her barriers down, to get her to that point where she was reciprocating, you know, saying I love you.
I mean, she talks about the way in which he like spent a lot of time befriending her close friends. Again, not people in the target group that he's supposedly targeting, but you know, old friends of hers from Liverpool, to get really close to them, to get them to kind of help him kind of impress upon her how much he cared about her. You know, make it that thing of turning up at her surprise birthday party in Liverpool, meeting her family. You know, he's going to great lengths. He's put a lot of effort into getting her to be emotionally connected to him.
Yeah, and you can imagine he loves the idea of these things. He, you know, it's like him being the hero of his own story, which is like so prevalent for all of them, like making that surprise gesture, all of these things which underlining it, you know, a surprise holiday. It's those kind of big gestures so often are narcissistic and about the person offering them. I do wonder though, this on a completely different point, like was his life much better amongst activist circles and like I imagine like the love, the care that he would have received from Lindsey would be like really quite remarkable. And I'm just like, I just wonder with these cops, they obviously like align with the right and they dehumanize these people. But when you can't dehumanize consistently a woman like Lindsey, I'm like, what happens there? Like at any point during it, did he feel guilt, or did he just switch that whole part of his mind off? Yeah. How can you receive that love and care and not have some kind of voice that speaks to you where you feel guilty?
I mean, I can't even begin to understand, but I mean, it's certainly something we've heard from multiple of former undercover officers about the way that the love and affection and care that they got from the target group that they were in whilst deployed undercover was another level to anything they ever received in their real lives. You know, that they'd never been exposed to that. Now, I mean, particularly when Jim Boylan talked about it, I was like, that sounds like a bloke who's never had any real mates.
Yeah.
You know, and because he was saying, oh, there's something unique about the alternative culture, that they all care about each other much more than people in the real world. And it's like, no, you just never had any mates, mate.
Yeah.
You know, but like, yeah, I mean, it really is quite. You do wonder what kind of real life have they got that they're able to do this. You know, I mean, I refrain from getting too deep into sort of the psychology of these men, but like they've got to be sociopaths or something in order to do this.
I just feel like, you know, and the people in charge today, it's so telling, but nothing is more dangerous than like a man who probably didn't receive much love growing up but felt entitled to power and to dominance and some kind of prestige or whatever, because, you know, and potentially getting bullied at school or whatever it is, not having mates, because they end up taking it out on women, on minorities, on people who are vulnerable, because somehow like they're taking out, you know, their dad bullies them as a kid, let's say, and they end up taking it out on like the rest of civilization and not so much on the other men around them.
Yeah, but I mean, there's this sense, isn't there? I mean, like this is the nature of the patriarchy, is that, you know, the other men are the co-conspirators, you know, and there's this this boys' club that goes like, well, we've othered this sex class, and we're gonna, you know, you can do whatever you like to them, but not to each other. That's part of it, right?
And even when like the initial harm caused was probably perpetrated by like, you know, the other boys in their boarding school or the lack of attention or whatever from dads, like that just is so often the story, and that's my route into I know what you mean about resisting the kind of psychologizing of them, and like it's not something they've ever done for anyone else on this planet, so we have to be careful. But at the same time, you can't help but wonder, like, how does someone shut off their basic humanity? How does someone look someone else in the eye and deceive them and not have any spark of conscience?
And certainly we've seen lots of extracts from his written statements to the inquiry. There is no spark of conscience whatsoever. I mean, he's downplaying, he's denying, he's dismissing,
and turning the finger.
Yeah, very much turning the finger. You know, claiming that, you know, that there was this woman from Liverpool who wanted to have a relationship with me. You know,
I love it when Lindsey said, I wasn't doing him any charity. It wasn't a charity work. Getting with him. And I also she manages to get in these amazing cusses, including about his looks, being like, that was not the reason why I was drawn to him. It was never going to be that. It was because he was charming and because we were politically aligned. But she's doing an amazing job, and Mitting's loving it.
Yeah.
But she's getting in these it's not even digs, it's just the truth. But it is always nice when they just like get brought down a level.
Yeah, definitely.
A humorous way.
I mean, I think what's really good. I mean, there's lots of different ways in which she's been a good witness, but one of the things is that she's obviously not. No offense to her, not particularly prepared. She's speaking off the cuff, from the heart, about unlike like a lot of the women who've been deceived into relationships, really obsessed over it and really worked on the timeline and been very specific with detail and dates. She hasn't done that. She's gone like, you know, look, this is what happened. This is how I felt. This is what it was about. You know, like, probably around then, probably around here or whatever. And it just comes across as incredibly human.
Yeah, and she's really good at bringing it back to the main things that matter, because she's not, I don't think she's like, oh, I have to prove this or that. She'll, you know, they'll ask her what the impact now of discovering that he might have given you presents to lure you in. How does that feel now? And she's kind of saying, you know what, it's outrageous, but it's nothing in comparison to the ultimate deception. She's very big at just like bringing it back to reality and like what really counts in this.
Yeah, and then she has been remarkably good at that, and pointing out, being used for sex. This is what it was about, right? Do you know what I mean? It's not like there's a lot of how does that make you feel? And it's like, well, it doesn't matter what makes me feel. What matters is what he did.
Yeah, and she's just it doesn't feel like she's trying to construct any kind of narrative. It's like kind of warts and all, and she's not presenting herself in just an entirely positive light, and she's also talking about like his nice qualities, which I think just you can really just kind of take her at her word. And I'm watching Mitting's reaction to her, and I think like he is finding her really endearing.
I mean, she is incredibly endearing. She is very endearing. I really encourage people. It's being broadcast audio only, so you can't see any of the pictures. There's a lot of the photographs. They are on the Undercover Police Inquiry website. Some of them have been shared by a campaign opposing police surveillance on Twitter during the hearings. But please tune in if you can. I really recommend hearing her own voice on this matter.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm watching a short film called We Did Not Consent.
Yes.
On Guardian Docs.
Yes. Do I mean I will share that on Twitter. Maybe I'll put it in the comments of this. We've had a few questions in the comments. Please feel free to leave any comments of any questions you might have. Just somebody saying, pigs thrown in the boot, the very boot they lick under the jail. The defence forwarded to these awful piggies by the inquiry is sickening. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that long ago we weren't allowed to say the name Saraki. And then another one. I need to get this inquiry talk up for the family when what they went through. The brother Colin Roach died in Stokey Police Station. Yet of course the Colin Roach Centre was infiltrated by Mark Jenner, who we heard from before Christmas. Please share and like this video. I always cringe to ask, but it makes a big difference to how much we're seeing. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
I think so.
Well, we'll be going back in about half an hour. It's been suggested there's not a great deal more that's been covered. Is there anything particularly, like knowing the stories you do, that you're looking forward to hearing about? We haven't really got to the end of the relationship yet, which was quite traumatic.
Within this story, I think always just hearing that kind of impact statement from the women, it's a very difficult thing to summarize, but vast majority of the population have not gone through anything comparable to this. So to try and actually just sit with them in the impact that it's had, that's always important. And then just upcoming in the inquiry as well, we'll make sure I'm here for Maya, who's talking in March.
Yes.
Who's in one of the other three women who's in our documentary, and
Received by Robert Hastings, the last of the SDS officers to be deployed, and the one who eventually led to the downfall of the entire unit, which is one hell of a story.
Yeah.
A lot more to come. I'll do another one of these videos at the end of the day. I get the impression there won't be an afternoon break. We'll go back in for about half an hour of prepared questions. Then there will be Rule 10s. We'll be hearing about the end of the relationship. There's been a few sort of little allusions to it over the last hour or so about how he became more withdrawn, and how badly it affected Lindsey at the time, how she withdrew from the friendship group that she was a part of in London, leaving her very isolated because she couldn't bear to see him. I mean, this is the other side of that love bombing, that like kind of just this largesse he kind of put upon her, and then withdrawing that and what that resulted in.
Yeah, it's really hard to know exactly the ways in which this affects it has affected the whole rest of your life. But of course, if you come out of one relationship that begins with someone love bombing you, it ends with them just like, retracting that and distancing themselves. That is just an emotional roller coaster, and that in itself is something to get over. But then how you trust people, and I think you probably question yourself. Did I, why did I trust this person? Why did I give myself to them when I wanted to protect myself? And I think, for a lot of the women, when they reflect on the relationships they had or they didn't have after the spy cops, it really is like a domino effect. Like everything that happened after was negatively impacted by that. Trust is something you want to build on it and build on it and build on it. And if it starts being chipped away at, it's like many steps back, and you're trying to take these steps forward. But trust, love is such precious things, and they're like human beings at their most vulnerable. That I think to eat without even knowing he was a spike up at the time, she would have known that her trust and her love had been abused, and that in itself is a huge thing to kind of get over and build yourself up after.
Yeah, a huge thing, a huge thing. And it says so much that even despite that at the time, she still looks so fondly back at the gifts, the cards, the trips away, the way that he treated her at the beginning, you know, that and you know, then finding out the reality of the situation and that and how she feels about it now, which, you know, so disgusted by it all. I'm sure we'll get to, you know, when she found out and the reaction to that as well. Something we've heard from so many of the women of, you know, in the, you know, about 10, 12 years ago, I think in her case, where she found out that he was an undercover officer, and the result of that, you know, and how that affected her entire life.
Yeah, it's an absolute head fuck.
Yeah, an absolute head fuck. More from the undercover policing inquiry later on this afternoon. Please do tune in. There's a couple more comments. One from the campaign opposing police surveillance. Sometimes the inquiries say they can't deal with anything outside England and Wales. Other days they cover romantic trips to Venice. Yeah, I mean, this is absolutely a massive issue because there was an argument between lawyers just the other day after the inquiry broadcast finished about the coverage of the G8 in Scotland. Scotland is outside the remit of the inquiry. There are lots of other incidents to do with foreign travel and operations that happened outside the UK. People may remember when we were looking at Jim Boyling's deployment, the GM actions in Ireland, which were not explored because they happened outside England and Wales. Yet we have looked at quite a lot at this trip to Venice. It's very inconsistent, and I would really encourage the inquiry to give equal weight to things that happened outside of England and Wales. It doesn't make a lot of sense the way they're doing it.
Yeah, no, this story of Venice is one of the key insights to their relationship.
And so much of it is about this foreign travel. I mean, like for so many of the officers, that's the key moments in how they manipulated these women, you know, getting them away from their family and friends into another place, absolutely love bombing them, you know, making them feel very special and like key part of their lives. I mean, we haven't really touched on this thing of him sharing secrets with her, which he was really adamant she shouldn't share with anybody else. There's a key hallmark of what so much of these undercover officers did, creating these like emotional bonds over the fact that they've confided in someone. Incredibly manipulative.
Yeah, completely. And you just wonder what, like, they're doing it so instinctively. It's like, where do you learn that? How do you become these like masters of deceit and manipulation?
I mean, it's taught. That's the impression we're getting, that it's something that's taught. It's a strategy. It's something that the officers sitting down together with their managers and going, well, if you do this and that. And certainly we've seen from so many of the letters, the similarities, you know, the way in which they learned from previous deployments over and over again.
There are so many little crossovers. It's really interesting. The more stories, you know, like you just hear a line there and you go, oh, that links to that one. And they were all in a room, like, brainstorming the best ways to deceive women.
Carlos Araki will be giving evidence himself next week. Is there anything that you'd really like to hear his version of events on?
I mean, what's useful is that there are photos of, for example, them in Venice. There's evidence. There's things that he really can't deny. So it will be quite useful to just like hold those bits of evidence. There are things that he kind of can't wriggle away from. Also the fact that he, you know, 3 relationships, 3 different women, one after the other. Why was that necessary?
I mean, certainly none of it was necessary, but certainly he enjoyed it. I mean, that's the impression we get, right? It's all about his personal gratification, it seems. So we'll be back with a bit more from Lindsey this afternoon. We'll be back again tomorrow. Lois Austin will be returning to the inquiry to give evidence about she was not in a relationship with Carlos Araki, but she was infiltrated by him. A lot about the events of May Day 2001. And then we'll be hearing again from Jason Bishop, who gave evidence on Monday, who'll be back for a second day of questioning. Before next week, we'll be hearing from Carlos Araki. Anything else you'd like to add?
All good.
Thanks ever so much for joining us. Thank you for watching. We'll do another video this afternoon. See you then. Bye for now.
Thank you.